G'day guys, and a huge hello from down under. I'm Sydney Tamer, and today I want to jump into something a little different and talk about some of my favourite Pokemon. Growing up, I was always a huge fan of Pokemon, just as much as Digimon. And just like my favourite Digimon list, which I'll leave a link for down below, I'm making this list a top 20, so let's get started. Coming in at number 20 is Charmeleon. I know that Charizard is the overwhelming fan favourite, but back in the 90s, I was the right age for when Pokemania hit, and back then my favourite Pokemon out of the original 151 was Charmeleon. I thought fire types were the coolest, my favourite colour was red, so that's probably why it appealed to me so much. In the anime, Ash's Charizard was never fun to be around, it was always so spiteful and disobedient, that's probably what caused me to never evolve my Charmeleon. Number 19 is another Kanto Pokemon, and that's Scyther. Scyther was always one of the OG badass designs from Gen 1. It's got an awesome blend of praying mantis and dragon concepts that for some reason really works. And what made having Scyther so awesome in red version was how difficult it was to obtain in the Safari Zone. The games really made you work for such an intense Pokemon to add to your team. Number 18 is a new entry into my favourite Pokemon list, and that's because it only just came out in the latest generation, and that's Galerion Darumaka. This might seem really random to some people, but I just find its animation so appealing. I just really like how much of a little snowball yeti he's become. It's so cute. And just like Scyther, I really had to work to obtain this guy in my sword version. Even though Darumaka has a 5% chance of appearing in the wild, it took me more than an hour and a half to encounter just one of them. He really lived up to his yeti namesake. Number 17 is Morlol. I'm not normally drawn to cute fairy type Pokemon, but Morlol really strikes such an adorable balance for me. I love the mysteriousness of mushroom fairy circles, and Morlol seems to lend into that concept completely, scattering spores from its mushrooms at night that both light up an area and put others to sleep. Also, its cry sounds super cute. Number 16 is another Alola Pokemon, and that's Midnight Lycanroc. Who couldn't like this guy? It's a werewolf Pokemon. That easily stood out to me as a party member when I was first selecting my team for Moon version. I feel like rock types generally have a pretty uniform appearance, and I'm glad Rockruff's line broke that trend and brought something very different to the table. Number 15 is Gliscor. I just realised I've placed the closest thing we have to a vampire Pokemon next to a werewolf Pokemon. Whoops. Anyway, Gliscor took a while to grow on me. I initially thought its design was too vastly different from Gligar's, although that was my feeling with most of the Gen 4 evolutions of previous Pokemon. However, over the years, its design has become more unique to me. I love its body proportions, its oversized claws and chest compared to its wiry body and arms, and it's got some solid stats to boot. Number 14 is Alolan Marowak. I love the concepts of the regional variants, and to me Marowak was the one that embodied its new region the most. I never disliked Cantonian Marowak, but in comparison, it was always just a bit of a bland and forgettable ground type in a sea of more awesome ground types. But its Alolan form really spiced it up. It has such amazing lore and colour scheme, and the fire ghost typing really helped it stand out. Number 13 is the only pseudo-legendary on this list, and that's Garchomp. How could someone not like Garchomp? It's just so cool and menacing, and it's known as Champion Cynthia's ace Pokemon. I'm in the camp that considers her the hardest champion to defeat, and bringing down her monstrous Garchomp feels so satisfying and rewarding. Number 12 is the last non-fully evolved Pokemon on this list, and that's Crebralla. The fighting type is one of my favourite types, and when Crebralla was revealed for Alola, I thought it looked absolutely amazing. And what a concept, a boxer and a coconut crab put together. I was unfortunately very let down by its evolved form, Crabominable, but that hasn't stopped Crebralla from still becoming one of my favourite Pokemon. And just missing out on a top 10 spot is the final Alolan Pokemon on this list, and that's Alolan Sandslash. Regular Sandslash has always been one of my favourite ground types, but this new form just took its design to new levels. I love how its spikes are now encased in giant frozen icicles. I love its colour scheme and its big metal claws. Everything about it, right down to the unique type combo of ice and steel. Cracking into the top 10, and we've got the second of our 6 starter Pokemon on this list, and that's Blaziken. Up until the release of Ruby and Sapphire, I'd always gone the fire starter and loved them. But Blaziken was in a whole new league of admiration. It's so amazingly cool and fast looking. And in Generation 6, Mega Blaziken brought a whole new level of intensity to its design. Replacing Charmeleon, Blaziken was one of my new favourite Pokemon for many years following Gen 3. In at number 9 is another new entrant, and that's Poltigeist. Ghost types are so cool in general, but even with that in regard, I don't know why Poltigeist appeals to me so much. It's just so cute and unique looking. I love how Game Freak made a T Pokemon for the region based off the UK. And in my opinion, no one could have predicted what Poltigeist design and typing would have been. I even love how it haunts hotels and creates more of its species by pouring some of its own body into empty teacups. Very original lore. Number 8 is a fan favourite, and that's Sizzle. When I started putting together this list, I was determined to not have Pokemon from the same evolutionary family, but I really needed to have both Scyther and Scizor on here. They're both so badass. Scizor is also the only Johto Pokemon on this list, which honestly surprised me because I love Johto. I feel like I don't need to talk too much about how cool Scizor is and why it's so high up on this list. About my only complaint with it is I wish it was coloured slightly more closer to Scyther's colour scheme. I know its beta design was originally dark green, that should have stuck in my opinion. Number 7 is another huge fan favourite, and that's Lucario. I know some people think Lucario is too favoured and tended to by Game Freak, following after Pikachu and Charizard, and while I agree with that sentiment, Lucario is still just far too awesome to not like. Like, its concept of being an Anubis-like Egyptian boxing jackal is just so perfect and collaborative. I know Lucario has gotten a bad rep in recent years, but it's been one of my favourites for more than a decade now, and will probably appear in my top 10 for many more years to come. Number 6 is once again a huge fan favourite, and that's Greninja. This is the only Kalos Pokemon appearing on my list. Greninja's fanbase is extremely obvious. It was voted the most popular Pokemon from around the world in 2020, with more than 140,000 votes. That by default made it the most popular Kalos Pokemon, but the difference was staggering. Sylveon was the runner-up on just 66,000 votes. Greninja took a while to grow on me. I was definitely initially put off by the tongue scarf, but I now think it is really innovative and creative. What usually gets me to like a Pokemon more is when I draw it more and more, and this was definitely the case with Greninja. It's a very fun Pokemon to design. Number 5 is slightly left of field. It's another frog Pokemon, and that's Toxicroak. Croagunk and Toxicroak have always been one of my favourite lines from Gen 4, and in my opinion are two of the most fun and inventive designs to come out of Pokemon. Poison Dart Frogs are awesome to begin with, but the way it's blended dynamically with the unmistakable influence of Muay Thai kickboxing is what really sells the design to me. Number 4 is another starter Pokemon, this time my latest one, and that's Cinderace. I was already super excited over Scorbunny's design when it was first revealed, and fortunately to me Cinderace did not disappoint. I said it in my favourite Digimon video, but I've been a soccer player since I was 5 years old, though the people of Galar would probably make me call it football. So I was always going to feel an early bond with Cinderace than I normally wouldn't with more recent starters. Number 3 was on top of this list for many years, and that's Breloon. When Gen 3 came out, I immediately had two new favourites. One of them was Blaziken, and the other one was Breloon. I loved it. It was a bipedal fighting mushroom dinosaur. And this was at a time when I didn't have access to the internet, so imagine my surprise when the Shroomish I'd caught in my Sapphire version turned into this awesome design. I also like how useful Breloon was for many years in the competitive scene. I'd have never considered a Pokemon with such a medium base stat total to find so many varying niches, but Breloon managed to do it. Number 2 is another fire starter Pokemon, and that's Infernape. Gen 4 as a whole is probably still to this day my favourite generation of Pokemon, and Infernape brought so much to my Sinnoh journey. Its colour scheme seems so unique, we hadn't had a fire starter with so much white fur on its body, and it's just so sleek, fast and cool looking. Just look at that wry smile. And the anime made it even more likeable. Ash's Infernape still to this day is considered to have had the best story arc of any Pokemon on the show, coming back to win against its former trainer at the Pokemon League who had abandoned it earlier. And finally, number 1, the only Gen 5 Pokemon on this list, once again another starter, and that's Samurot. This Pokemon's had a long climb to the top. When Black and White began to leak and reveal online, Oshawott was my favourite of the 3 starter Pokemon, and I thought Duwott was even cooler. But I originally disliked the stark difference in design between Duwott and Samurot. Fast forward a couple of years later, my Pokesona trainer who I draw comics about had a Duwott for a while, and in an effort to get him stronger, I spontaneously made his Duwott evolve into a Samurott. And from there, the love began to grow. Each time I drew Samurott, I realised how powerful and perfect looking it was. A samurai sea lion, encased in shells, was about as badass as you could get for a swordsman Pokemon. If you stuck around this long, thank you so much guys, I really appreciate it. I'll be jumping back into some Digimon stuff soon, but I'll also attempt to balance it out with more and more Pokemon vids. If you like this content, please leave a like, comment and subscribe below. I'm Sydney Tamer, and until the next video, I'll see yous all later.